Well, good morning, kids. How is everybody doing? I hope you are all doing fantastic. I have my coffee. I hope you have yours. And we're ready to roll. We got a lot of news to talk about today. I'm actually not that late this morning. Holy cow, that's the big news of the day. Am I right? Oh my god. Hey everybody, I'm Bitwave. Life's abyss and then you die. I like that. I am going to screen cap that. That was a good one. Who's my screen cap guy? I need you to screen cap that for me. I'm gonna put that on my stream now. Hey MZ, how you doing? Hey Trolio, hello everybody, I'm Bitwave. I'm gonna greet everybody as I usually do on all the different platforms. Hello everybody, I'm Bitwave. Hello everybody on YouTube, on Twitch, on DLive, on Periscope. I think that covers it all. Did I forget any? Let me check. YouTube, Periscope. Did I say Periscope? I don't remember if I said Periscope. If I did, hello everybody on Periscope. Lots of big news today. One in particular that we definitely are gonna have to talk about. Before I do that, some maintenance here. I do have to do one quick tweet about the fact that I'm live on all the different platforms. I'm still trying to work out a slightly different situation here when it comes to streaming. So I'm still not on Float streaming. That didn't quite work out the first time I tried that. So it's not Float's fault. So I want to be clear, I'm not bashing the platform or anything like that. It is not the fault of Float.app. I'm just trying to FLOTE for those that are unfamiliar. I'm just trying to get my rig set up properly. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about that, because I don't want any misconceptions that I'm not blaming the platform in any way. Not at all. But there's a lot of news that happened between yesterday and today. And one of the big things is you have the Norwegian parliamentarian. A Norwegian parliamentarian nominates Donald Trump for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize. Now, Trump has been nominated for the Peace Prize before, and it's been mostly ignored by the Nobel Committee, it seems, because of their bias and hate for Trump. Really, that's really what it boils down to, because there has been reason for him to be nominated for, like, his elimination of ISIS in the Middle East, for example. That definitely would be something that would merit some commendation for. I mean, he deserves credit for that, whether you like him or not. Does he deserve the Peace Prize for that? I don't know. But at least recognizing what he did for the elimination of ISIS, which, mind you, ISIS was engaged in like a Christian genocide. They were throwing gays off of roofs. They were enslaving and using women as sex slaves and raping them and pillaging villages. I mean, they were wreaking some havoc. I mean, let's just be clear. So it would seem like that's something that someone getting rid of these horrible people would merit some credit for that. But no, the media isn't interested in being honest. People that don't like Trump aren't interested in being objective about his accomplishments. But this whole Middle East, this UAE, and Israel normalization of relations, that's huge. That's not only huge, it's historic. And whether you like Trump or not, You know, it's irrelevant at this point because you have to look at what's going on out there. And it seems like the person who nominated him had nominated him before as well. But I mean, come on, this is something that it doesn't. Like I said, it doesn't matter what your personal likes or dislikes are regarding the man. The guy was able to negotiate a normalization of relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East, where there's been nothing but havoc. This is a first sign towards peace. Can peace really be achieved in the Middle East? I don't know. There's no guarantee of anything. But you know, my take on all this is this. I would say if I were Trump, I wouldn't even accept it. Let's say the nomination goes through, they look at all the facts, they say, okay, we're going to give you the Nobel Peace Prize. I snub them. I snubbed them for the other times that they snubbed me. And I would tell them that because they gave the award to people like Obama, who did absolutely nothing to deserve it, he did nothing at all. Yet they gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. To me, that basically made the Nobel Peace Prize worth bupkis. So what's the point? I wouldn't bother with it. I would just say thanks. I appreciate it. I appreciate the the recognition at least of what I've done, but forget it. And yeah, basically that's what it is. That's my take on the whole thing. I wouldn't even bother accepting it. So that's the big news of the day. Oh geez, his detractors would be amazingly angry at this whole thing. The fact that there's any recognition of anything that he does, that just brings their blood to a boil. I don't know if he would accept it actually, because he doesn't accept a salary for being president. He can he has shown on occasion that he can be selfless. So there's plenty of stories where he's let people stay in his apartment building for free. Yeah, but he's also let people stay in his apartments for free. There's stories, I've read many stories of his charitable works that he's done where he's helped people out. He's heard stories of people like that they were suffering or whatever, and he cuts them checks of like 25 grand to help them out. He can be selfless when he wants to. Sure, you're right, Troller. I'm not saying that because he has money he can't be charitable. I'm gonna talk about that, troll ZZZZ. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that too. Listen, he has shown to be a person, he has demonstrated that he can care. Many people don't want to believe that, because he is kind of an egomaniac a little bit. Yeah, he has some narcissistic tendencies for sure. Most CEOs do. Most business owners do. That's nothing unusual. There's been studies about this um over the past 20 years that I've seen. I've seen plenty of studies to talk about this sort of thing. But I'm from what I've seen, I'm convinced that if he wants to really send a message and stick it to people, He probably would do that. He's capable of doing that if he wants to. Oh goodness, that's an interesting reference, Illustrator. I didn't even think about that. A city named after Jack Benny's chauffeur, Rochester. That's right. That's right. I forgot that was the name of Jack Benny's character, chauffeur character. That's funny. Oh boy. InDesign, what are you working on, sir? No, it's fine. No, but I mean, I think that it would send a strong message if Trump would do that. If he would tell them thanks, but basically F off. Like, you guys are nothing but political hacks, and your award is worthless to me. You can learn a lot from Warner Brothers cartoons, yeah. Oh, those are the best. I love Warner Brothers cartoons. Those are my absolute favorites. But anyways, moving on. Yeah, if I was Trump, I wouldn't accept it. Even if I want it. I would tell them, put it in a museum somewhere, whatever. Like, I'm not interested. Because if you give it to people like Obama, it's just a hunk of metal. It's meaningless. It holds no value anymore. Absolutely no value. Well, he's been nominated again for it. For all the work that he's done in the Middle East again. And it seems like the Nobel Committee this time is actually going to look at the nomination seriously at this point, because they're kind of forced to at this point. Their arms twisted. No, he's not. That's true. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I would do. What I would do to just well, maybe he might do that. He might dab on Obama in his acceptance speech. I personally just wouldn't. Because, like I said, because to me, after giving the Nobel Peace Prize to someone like Obama, who did, again, absolutely nothing to deserve it, he actually created more chaos in the Middle East. He extended the war in Afghanistan. He caused more death and destruction. He was droning civilians. That's hardly peace. Oh, sure. I mean, the Nobel Prize. I'm sure that if you look at its history, you'll find some interesting things about it, no doubt. But oh yeah, I forgot to put my headphones on. I'm not hearing myself. There you go. All right, now I can hear myself. Well, Trump's deal opens up, first of all, dialogue between the United Arab Emirates and Israel. And that's a huge thing. And the United Arab Emirates recognizing Israel as a legitimate country, letting them fly in their space, for example, opening things up. That's why that would explain why you're not complaining about your headphones. I don't know what you're talking about. Am I developing a reputation? Used to get hack attempts from the UAE all day. Yeah. Well, I've seen hack attempts, and I've seen spam and phishing attempts from like China, Russia, also Vietnam. I've seen stuff from all over the place. So I mean, but the point is the fact that any level of normalization of relations between countries in the Middle East, especially with Israel, that is a positive sign for more diplomatic solutions in the future, less conflict, a more open economy. It's a foundation. It's a foundation for a Middle East that could kind of look like Europe. That's really what it boils down to. Because if all the countries in the Middle East decide to agree to disagree on things, normalize relations, have trade deals, have travel agreements, have diplomatic agreements for whatever the reasons may be. Like, I don't know, commercial reasons, travel. Like I said, commercial travel. There's a lot of different things that could happen. Um, Israel's got nukes; they can hold it down on their own for a while. Yeah, I'm sure. And I think one of the big motivating factors here is also if there is a united front in the United Arab Emirates. And this is my own speculation at this point. I don't really have anything that I can talk about in terms of evidence to back what I'm thinking. But this is what I'm thinking. If you have a united front in the United Arab Emirates, Israel, in the Middle East in general, the more problematic countries like Iran that are really close to getting a nuclear weapon, instead of having Europe, Asia, and the United States come in to try and control them, if there are normalized relations and the Middle East becomes a secondary kind, not secondary, but becomes like Europe, that they can manage their own region of the world without outsiders coming in, then they can deal with Iran. They can deal with that threat. We don't have to commit resources, money, taxes, etc. They can deal with it. Because if all the countries around Iran puts pressure on Iran, guess what? Iran at a certain point is going to have to concede and go, well, you know what? We're surrounded on all sides here. Nobody wants us to do what we're doing. We're kind of boned in a sense. Well, China could definitely put some influence on the Middle East for sure. But the fact that the United States is the vanguard in and the leader in negotiating this is a big deal. And the fact that Trump negotiated these deals is a big deal because up until this point, there's been nothing but conflict out there. True, they are a theocracy. They think Allah will protect them for sure. I'm not. That's why I'm saying it's mere speculation on my part. I don't have I don't have a lot of like hard evidence to say, oh, this is definitely going to happen or not. I don't. It is cultural for sure. Yeah. Hmm. Sipping my coffee here. But no. But the point is, it's a foundation. It's a start. Just to get to this point is a big deal because up until now, nobody ever wanted to really come down and sit at the table to have a discussion. For the first time, they've allowed planes from Israel to land in the United Arab Emirates. I mean, it's a big deal. Will the results end up being spectacularly positive? Who knows? Who knows? I don't know if the end game of this is going to be something positive. But the start, at least, is a positive start. And I think that anybody, it doesn't matter what your politics are, if you've been even remotely aware of what a shit show the Middle East has been for the past 50, 60 years, 70 years, this is not a bad thing. Imagine if Mecca was turned 4,000 degrees. What? What are you talking about? Like physically turned? Like spun around 4,000 degrees? Is that what you're talking about? I'm not entirely sure I follow. But anyways, the point is, it's a big deal. It's quite the big deal. I think that it's really something to think about. Um, so I think it's worth looking into in terms of a Nobel Peace Prize. I think it's worth recognizing that it is not just a monumental thing that's happened. It's historical. And you know what's funny now? I just saw that on Twitter. Hitler is trending on Twitter because Hitler was also nominated for the Peace Prize. You know what's funny to me? I don't remember this trend happening when they nominated the Peace Prize. They nominated Obama for the Peace Prize. Yeah, and that goes back to what I talk about hypocrisy on the left. The sheer hypocrisy on the left. It's all politics. It's all politics. All politics. And all these people that are using Hitler now, they're morons. They're just idiots. Because they're such big babies that they can't stomach the fact that Trump actually can accomplish things. You know, grow up. Grow up. Mature a little bit. Look at reality. Look at facts. Look at actual accomplishments that people do. And look at what Trump has been able to do as president. And look at people like Biden, who's been in politics for 47 godforsaken years. And he's done shit. Frankly. Actually, the stuff that he has done has been detrimental to the United States. Especially the black communities. Especially minority communities. So, if we want to really, really examine things and people want to play these stupid little political games, go ahead, play these stupid little political games. But the reality is, you're not changing the minds and hearts of anybody. Actually, all you're doing is you're reinforcing his base. And beyond that, you're actually making people turn their nose in disgust at the left and at Democrats, at the Democrat Party. And not only that, hold up. Not only that, you're also making people trust the media even less than they already do. The media's trust right now levels are at an historic low. There has never been, to my knowledge, there has never been a moment in history that the media has been trusted less. And this is where we're at right now. Sorry, I'm readjusting a couple things here. So yeah. Of course, Twitter would allow stupid shit like this because it's Twitter. Why not? What else is happening in the news right now? That's worth talking about. Yes, actually, the whole Rochester thing. That's actually something quite fascinating to talk about. So, for those that are not aware, let me see. I had that up actually here. Where is that? I had that right here. Here we go. The Rochester police chief steps down amid scrutiny of, this is the spin that NBC News put, but the Rochester police chief announces retirement, and the entire command staff stepped down. Okay, the chief and entire command staff of the police department in Rochester, New York resigned on Tuesday. This is amazing. This is amazing to me. He told the city council briefing Tuesday that the entire Rochester police command staff has retired and that there may be a number of others that will decide to leave as well. This is the mayor. The mayor is discussing the Mayor Lovely Warren. What kind of name is Lovely Warren? But anyways, during the city council briefing, that statement that I just read, that entire Rochester Police Command staff has retired, that there may be a number of others that will decide to leave as well. The chief will be in charge till the end of the month. So, this is, to me, something amazing, and I don't really blame him. And I don't blame the command staff. I don't blame cops just throwing their hands up and going, you know what? I don't need this crap. Every day, police go out there, put their lives on the line to protect and help people, and all they get, especially recently from the left, is just shit. They don't get any slack, they don't get any benefit of the doubt, they don't get anything. Well, that's another accomplishment of Trump. Yeah, he was able to defeat Vince McMahon at Monday Night Raw battle of the billionaires. That's right. I don't know if Rochester's a college town. I know that Rochester is kind of it's a high class kind of place, and there's money there. If I'm not mistaken. Well, I mean, that could be one theory, Troll ZZZZ. I'm just gonna call you Troll Z. It's easier. One theory, you're saying that one theory I heard on the Chicago chief quitting was that he wants to quit before the budget cuts come. Well, I mean, that may be the case for Chicago. I don't know. But this is pretty crazy stuff to see. Not only the command chief, but the entire command staff stepping down as well. And like I said, I don't blame them. It sucks for the people in the sense that if you lose police force on the streets and in the precincts, yeah, but I mean, I could just drop the troll part, yeah. But I can also understand their frustration with this whole thing. I can understand the frustration of police that they just, like I said, they're getting nothing for the blood, sweat, and tears, and on many occasions, lives that police lose in the line of duty. And right now they're just being vilified as evil, as racist, as just going around abusing their power all over the place. And you know, any reasonable person would know that not every single police officer is like that. Not every chain of command in the police precincts are like that. They may not have had an organized police, but they sure as hell had some sort of structure for order. Even the Wild West had a sheriff. I don't believe they didn't have a police force at all. They had to have some sort of force to enforce the laws in the colonies, which probably came from, well, not just guns, but it came from Britain. I mean, these people came from Britain. They had to follow those laws. They had a judicial system that existed already that was just transplanted from Great Britain over to here. In fact, there's a very interesting book. I think I have this book. I gotta remember what the title is. I think it's called Great American Trials. It's a fascinating read. A fascinating read because it talks about these pivotal trials that happened from the colonies before the United States was the United States to present day. So it talks about these pivotal cases that had a huge effect on the judicial system of the United States before the Constitution and after the Constitution up until present or so. Like in the case of Roe versus Wade, that's one major case. The Salem witch hunts. These other cases that happened during the colonies. So it talks about all this sort of stuff, and it goes in, and it's not even it's a big book. It's a huge book, actually. It's pretty thick. But each case is only like 4 pages, because it just gives a general synopsis. It's not like a whole in-depth analysis of each case, but it gives you enough detail and enough information. Well, Roe versus Wade was decided on legal fiction, but that's a whole different discussion. But the point is, even back then, even if it was colonies, yeah, you had law enforcement. If you didn't have an actual police force, you had military, militia, what have you. There has always been some sort of structure within major societies to enforce laws and resolve conflicts. So whether people like it or not, that stuff existed from England. It had nothing to do with and this is another thing we'll talk about, the 1619 Project. Oddly enough, because it's come up in the news. There's things like in the 1619 Project saying that police, I think it's the 1619 Project. I could be wrong. It could be, it could be also Black Lives Matter that make this claim. I don't remember where this claim came from, to be completely honest. But one of these claims that say that the police force comes from catching slaves to try to escape. Yeah. Right. But we'll talk about that in a moment here. Going back to the police issue though. Basically what it boils down to is this. I know that the perception of police is not a universal thing, in the sense that each community views it differently because of how they're taught to perceive law enforcement. Okay? It's a big cultural problem more than anything. It's a big community problem more than anything. I have had my run-ins with being pulled over for no reason because of my appearance over the years. Yet I still don't vilify the police. I understand that they were trying to do their job. I didn't appreciate certain things, other things I do appreciate of the police. So I think that it would behoove anyone to just look at the facts. Instead of assuming that every time a policeman shoots a perpetrator, instead of assuming that every time that happens it's racially motivated, or every time that happens it's abuse of power, how about if there are questions, you investigate it, you look at the facts, you look at the evidence, you see what comes out of it, and if there indeed is racism involved, if there indeed is abuse of power involved, if there indeed is a problem in how they did their job, then yeah, take care of it. If there's some criminal act on the side of the police, arrest them. If there is evidence that shows that the police officer functioned well within his rights as a police officer to do his job and defend himself and the community, then so be it. It's not complicated. It's not complicated to just take a breather, stop being reactionary, stop being emotional about every single thing that happens in the news, because that's what the news wants. That's what the news does. Their whole job is to go in and stir up your emotions to get you riled up. That's their agenda. That's what they want to do. They want to anger people. They don't dwell in facts and reality anymore. They haven't in a long time. I mean, just look at PolitiFact. PolitiFact is working overtime, okay, to try and debunk stuff that is not true. I don't know if that's necessarily true, Z. I don't know if we let our cops get away with a lot. I think cops can get away with a lot because cops protect cops. And that's a internal cultural thing, which I think is also bad. There's plenty of stories where cops will protect other police officers because there's this kind of us versus them mentality, or this brotherhood, this kind of camaraderie thing. And that's a bad thing. That's definitely a bad thing. It's not good that police will protect other police officers if these police officers are indeed committing crimes. Excuse me, just taking another sip of my coffee here. So, I would say all around, it's not a bad thing to want police to improve. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants law enforcement to be as good as it can be. Why not? Why wouldn't anybody want that? But there's a difference between talking about, well, maybe we need to adjust training. Maybe we need to, like when people were talking about putting body cameras on police officers, I had no problem with that. I thought that was fantastic. I didn't think it was a bad thing. The only question that came to my mind was, well, can all the police districts afford it? Because some police have more money, districts have, like precincts have more money versus others don't. So you just had to figure out how you're going to work out the logistics of that. But I thought it was a wonderful idea. I didn't think it was a bad idea to have body cameras. Improved training in terms of hand-to-hand combat, improved training on use of force, improved training on different things, sure. Well, in a way, Z, you kind of have a point there. I mean, the cameras do show a lot of times that a lot of claims of racism and abuse of power, in many cases, just isn't there. That is true. That's one of the positive things that's come out with having body cameras for sure. But anyways, moving on, let's talk about some other stuff that's happening here. Like I was talking about PolitiFact. Actually, I mentioned PolitiFact. Let's talk about that just for a moment. PolitiFact has been going out of their way to try and protect Biden and prop him up and make him seem like he's not as radical as he said he is. So this is what's going on. PolitiFact is saying that Joe Biden didn't say that he wants to defund the police. They said that's false. They're saying PolitiFact is saying that Biden didn't say that he wants to eliminate suburbia. They're saying that's false. You know, the thing that I find amazing about PolitiFact working overtime on spreading these lies, essentially, and propaganda, is that there's video that shows that. There's video that shows Biden specifically saying those kind of things. Biden said he wanted to build only multifamily homes moving forward in suburban areas. He said that. He said he wanted to divert funds from police. He wants to defund the police. He said that. So, yeah, okay, PolitiFact can play games with semantics. Because maybe he didn't explicitly say, I want to defund the police. But when he says he's okay with redirecting funds away from the police, that means you're taking money away from them and redirecting them elsewhere. Which it's pretty much tantamount to defunding. So PolitiFact can essentially jump in a lake when it comes to this sort of thing that they're doing. It's obviously political. It's obviously propagandish. It's obviously just bullshit. And they just need to stop. Because all they're doing is making fools of themselves at this point. So to me, that's what it boils down to. So, I mentioned the 1619 project. Actually, let's talk about this a little while, because it's actually funny that this has come up. Because, unrelated to any of all this, I was having a very interesting and really wonderful debate and discussion about this whole topic. And not online, with folks that I know. And Trump mentions the 1619 project during one of his rallies here. I think it was the North Carolina rally. Yes, it was North Carolina. He says that he wants to restore patriotic education after threatening to defund schools that are trying to take away history by teaching the 1619 project. And you have people like Piers Morgan, which Piers Morgan is kind of an idiot. I don't agree with Piers Morgan on a lot of things. I think he's off base on a lot of things. But he does get it right like half the time. He's kind of a 50-50 guy. Half the time he gets things right, half the time he gets things wrong. And Piers Morgan is talking about, as well, he's saying, Trump is right, the 1619 project promotes fake history, and if Democrats keep trying to make Americans feel ashamed of Independence Day and back BLM protesters who scream at white diners, Biden will be history too, is what Piers Morgan is saying. So let's talk about the 1619 project. What is that? For those that are not too familiar with the 1619 project, that may have heard it in passing, this is a project developed by the New York Times by a journalist who basically wants to rewrite history because she wants to change the perception, or quote, the memory, this is her words, she wants to change the memory of slavery in America. Now, in a general abstract concept, let me just address one thing. If people want to have a conversation about American history, if people want to have a conversation about slavery, if people want to have a relation about racial issues, okay, sure. Fine. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that we can't have a discussion and a conversation about what's going on, what happened in American history. But the problem with the 1619 project is that it's not just having an open and honest conversation about this sort of thing. It's an overt political attempt here at changing history, and it's an overt attempt at making people perceive American history in a different way, which is not in sync with reality. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. There's a couple things in the 1619 project that, during its inception and such, and not only during its inception, actually, once it was released into the wild, there were objections by other journalists in the New York Times that were saying, they were doing fact checking, and they're saying that there's too many inaccuracies here. You need to address these factual inaccuracies, and they were summarily ignored by the New York Times. They didn't care. They didn't care at all. You have historians talking about this, going, you know what, this isn't real. This doesn't reflect what happened accurately. This doesn't reflect the intentions of the founding fathers. It doesn't sync with historical documents, with the Federalist Papers, with all these writings and musings of the founding fathers, because they explained what their motivations were, and they explained what their reasonings were, and how carefully they crafted the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and all those kind of things. They're setting up a foundation for what we have basically today, in a sense. And if you do research on this, you'll find that it's, as Lincoln said, that the basic foundation of our country is that all men are created equal, and this country was born in the concept of freedom and self-determination, and, you know, the manifest destiny philosophy. So what it boils down to is that the author herself, this journalist who promotes the project, she herself admits that it's not about history. in tweets and in interviews. She has said, this isn't about historical accuracy. This isn't about history. This is about changing people's minds. It's about affecting people's perceptions. So she doesn't care about accuracy of history. She doesn't care about whether the founding fathers had one intention versus another. She wants to portray America as an evil country whose economy was solely based on slavery, which is not true. Anybody that studies American history in a modicum of depth, I'm not even saying in depth, a modicum of depth, would know that that's not the case at all. And would know the struggle that this country has gone through to eliminate that institution. And if you want to be honest about the origins of slavery, and you want to be honest about how all that happened, America wasn't the inventor of slavery. So it's useless to even try and vilify the U.S. to that point, as if we invented slavery, we profited completely off of it, and then, you know, if this is the funny thing, if slavery was such a good thing for the United States back then, and if slavery was the only thing that our economy was based off of, why the hell would we remove it? If that was the best thing that ever happened to the United States, and we built a country off of the backs of slavery, why in God's name would we work to eliminate it and we have a civil war? Why? That makes zero sense historically. But again, it's not a matter of historical accuracy. It's not a matter of telling it how it is. It's a matter of propaganda. It's a matter of trying to change people's mind, having a political agenda. And the fact that schools use this, that's the worst part to me. I mean, because journalists can write all sorts of crap, and they do. What's worse for me is when schools use this garbage. That's where things get dangerous. And I can agree with Trump on this one. I can agree with other conservatives when they say they don't want this crap in schools. I don't think it's a good idea. I think that the best way to talk about history is just to talk about history. Just be accurate. You can't have a conversation. This is the whole premise here. Because they're saying, well, the whole premise is to have a conversation about this. Have a proper conversation about slavery and the history of the United States. Okay, fine. I'll grant you that. Let's have a proper conversation. Let's have a proper discussion. Let's sit down and talk about all the ills of American and even human history if you want. But if we want to have an honest discussion about it, if we want to have an open discussion about this, really try and get to the nuts and bolts of this whole thing, then shouldn't the premise be factual? Shouldn't the premise be honest? Shouldn't the premise be politically neutral? I would think so. I think if you want to have an honest discussion, you have to be honest about it. And if you're going to be honest about it, you have to go with the truth and the facts and the reality. If you want to make shit up, if you want to skew history because you have an issue with the United States, you can do that, but you're not having a real conversation there anymore. And that's the biggest problem with this project. That's the biggest issue, is that the foundation that it lays on is a false and skewed foundation. And you can't have an honest discussion and try and resolve issues based off of lies. That's really what it boils down to. I think it would behoove anyone to really look carefully at these materials. And I would recommend to any parent, don't let your teachers teach this crap to your kids. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, Trump is saying we need more patriotic education. Okay, I have no problem with instilling an appreciation for your country, instilling some patriotism in future generations. That's a good thing. On the opposite side of the spectrum, again though, they shouldn't teach things that only work as propaganda to make the United States think that it has no sins and it has no faults. We're not the perfect country here. There is no perfect country. And I don't think that the government really should be getting involved in any of this sort of thing, to be honest with you. I think that academia, for the longest time, the problem with academia is that it's no longer academia. Academia should be solely facts, science, math, history that pretty much everybody agrees on, in the sense that I know that history is, it's nearly impossible to know in history what is 100% accurate. Because depending on what you're studying, there just may not be enough information. There may be debate onto what happened exactly in one situation or another. But in certain other parts of history, there is a wealth of information and documentation that provides a relatively clear view of what happened during a certain time. And the more recent history you look at, the more accurate information gets, to an extent. Because there's always political skewing, especially nowadays, with how articles are written. Like, if people look back, people 50 years from now look back at what was written now, you're gonna see a slew of yellow journalism that's happening right now, kind of like what happened in the days of Lincoln, where they were telling the newspapers, there were newspapers and politicians and the media at the time, they were doing the exact same thing that they were doing now to Lincoln, calling him a despot, calling him a tyrant, calling him anti-democratic, that he broke laws and he was lawless and he just ignored the Constitution at a whim. You know, they say the same things about Trump. And the unfortunate case of Lincoln, he ended up getting assassinated. Makes you think. You know? Well, if educators don't resent their own country, that's a good start, Illustrator. That's definitely a good start. I would also say that if academia needs to be, I would say that schools in general need to be restructured in a way that you don't. One, actually, hold on. Let me go back a little bit. I would say that schools should be restructured in the sense that there are certain things that can be done to try and eliminate as much bias and political propagandizing that you would get in schools. I think that all materials used need to be politically free. Hey, Deetslander, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. I think there has to be some sort of way to have oversight as well. Like, nowadays with the technology that we have, it would not be difficult to have classrooms streamed so that parents can check in whenever they feel like it. Good to hear, sir. Good to hear. I'm glad you're doing all right. I think that if teachers are aware of the fact that there's a camera on them at all times in their classroom, they may be less inclined to do bullshit. And if these things are archived and not just streamed, well, I know that they're not a big fan of accountability, but there should be. Teacher unions should not have the power to just have bad teachers in a position without being able to get fired. If you have a bad teacher, you should be able to fire them. So I think that there's a couple steps that can be done. I don't think that there should be any sort of like approved or disapproved curriculum per se, because I don't like the idea of some unaccountable body approving or disapproving materials. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like cameras on cops. Put the cameras in the classrooms. Yeah, people start screaming 1984. No, I think that parents should have the right to see what is being taught to their children. And most people in public schools don't have that possibility of knowing what's really happening in the classroom. I'm not talking about like homeschooling. I'm talking about like your traditional classroom that you sit in the class and you have a teacher talking to you. I think that it would be a nice thing. Like if I were a parent and I had children in public school, I would love to just tap in every so often, just check on seeing what they're talking about, or even, like I said, it's recorded and it's archived, and I can go in and review. PTA meetings would get a hell of a lot more interesting. Yeah. Also, more help for teachers in poor economic black areas. Yeah. Well, I don't know what's gonna happen with that. I know that certain schools are reopening. It really depends on the geographic location. I think the biggest problem is that a lot of politics are being injected into this whole COVID thing. I've mentioned this many times before. And actually, I have a news report coming out of New York about this. So you have Cuomo, who he's basically this is from the Daily Mail. The article's title is Cuomo signs New York City restaurant's death warrant. Governor says he won't allow city to reopen indoor dining because it doubles the amount of bars and there's no one to enforce the rules. So, and the title continues. So how come other major cities are managing? So the big takeaways from this article is that Cuomo said that he wouldn't allow indoor dining in NYC to resume until there was a designated group assigned to patrolling it. He said it was down to the city run by Bill de Blasio to put the task force together. So he's basically pushing the blame on de Blasio. He's trying to absolve himself from responsibility. He's saying it's on the shoulders of de Blasio. Restaurants have been closed since March 16th. And there has been outdoor dining in New York City, but that's not nearly enough for the restaurants there. While some can offer outdoor dining, others can't, and even that will draw to a close when the weather turns in October. Because not all of them can afford those heating things outside anyways as well. Every other city in New York State and every major city around the world has now resumed indoor dining. And New York City officials inexplicably won't allow it, and the industry is outraged. A class action lawsuit has been filed against Cuomo and de Blasio, seeking $2 billion in damages. They say they are being unfairly kept closed when others have been able to open. So that's the gist of the article. I'm not going to go through and read the entire article. It's on the Daily Mail if you want to check it out. But yeah, the way New York has been run, and this is really, really the big problem, is not so much COVID, not so much those kind of issues. It's the fact that New York as a city and as a state has been run like absolute shite. Okay? It's been run horribly by de Blasio. It's been run horribly by Cuomo. Let's not even talk about the fact that he threw all these COVID people in nursing homes and killed about 11,000 seniors. Let's not even talk about that for the moment. Let's just talk about the fact that New York City, specifically, and the state, has had these draconian rules put in place. And other areas that are just as congested as New York have not. And yet, the other cities have fared and managed. Just like the article says, the other cities are managing to do restaurants even in limited capacity, keeping people distant. Sure. Fine. But other cities have been trying to slowly reopen, trying to slowly work through this thing. New York has been pretty much shut down. Businesses have closed. The New York economy is tanked, essentially. On top of that, you have people leaving, and you have the governor there. You have Cuomo begging people to come back because their tax revenue, the people that had money and left, they're not coming back. And that was a huge tax revenue for the city and for the state. So New York is a shit show right now. And New York is one of those cities that probably will have a bounce back, that there will be a bit of a comeback. But one, who knows how long that's going to take now. It may or may not be quick in terms of a recovery. And if they do recover, then the question is, well, will it ever come back to 100%? Well, the thing is, I have been to New York recently. They will not allow people inside. A lot of the places are following the rules, actually. Oh, really? You're in Suffolk County? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that, Illustrator. Yeah, Cuomo is an absolute disgrace as a governor. Apart from the fact that he has blood on his hands for all the murders that he basically committed with his policies, um, he has not known how to handle this whole thing at all. He's been on this power trip, this celebrity trip of being on camera every day. It is a ridiculous bubble, actually. New York City property values are so inflated, it's not even funny. And for the first time in many, many, many years, rents have gone down. Actually. Well, they started lowering a little bit. I've seen a small drop in rents in New York, and most likely that trend is going to have to continue. If they're gonna, there's a lot of, for the first time, there's empty apartments in New York. In the past, when something was listed in New York, within a week it was snagged. Now you have apartments sitting empty because people left and they don't want to come back. And I don't really blame them, honestly. I mean, I think New York City is a very interesting city. It's a fascinating city. There's a lot of wonderful hidden gems, a lot of great restaurants. It's one of those layers, you know? It's one of those layered cities that the more you explore it, the more interesting things you can find about it. But at the same time, it's run so poorly, taxes are so high, rents are ridiculously stupid. Yeah, you have. I'm sure you see a lot of that now. You see a lot of people renting stuff. What, Illustrator? But anyways, the point is, this is not going to end well for New York if New Yorkers don't stand up to people like Cuomo and people like De Blasio. New York, you know, I understand that New York is a very left-leaning town. Okay, I understand that they put a lot of left-leaning people in power. I get that. I'm not sure if I want to look that up, Illustrator. But anyways, I understand. I understand the politics of New York as a state and as a city. But I think even people that are leaning on the left here need to just sit down for a moment and have a moment of introspection. It's innocent? Okay, I'll check it out then. But I think they have to have a moment of introspection here and say, okay, let's forget that I'm a bleeding heart liberal. Let's forget that I'm a hardcore Democrat supporter. Let's just look at how things are being run in your city. Just look at how things are being run in your state. Look at how businesses are being hurt, how the economy is being hurt, how your rents are going up, and how nobody is helping. And how the city is not helping. And how up until, what was it, May, for example? May is when they decided to disinfect the trains every night. The subways. Like, they didn't think about that sort of thing beforehand during a quote, pandemic. So, I think that people need to put their politics aside for a moment and start looking at who they're putting in power in terms of what that person in power is going to do to them. Because the people that they put in power, they're not acting out of their interest for you. Well, it's not just about that, though. It's not just about shutting down city services to save money. Because eventually those services are going to reopen, and that tax bracket that they were milking, the milk and honey that they had, the teats that they were getting, that they were getting the resources from, they're gone. They left. That's the biggest problem here. Because no matter what your politics are at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is, if you have no money, your agenda is gone. That's what it boils down to. If you don't have the resources to implement your garbage agenda, whatever your garbage agenda may be, you're up shit's creek. And if all of a sudden you need to actually be efficient, and all of a sudden you actually have to be able to run a city, and all of a sudden you have to be able to run a state without milking people and putting garbage programs in place, then, oh goodness, all of a sudden reality will hit you hard. And not only hit you politically, it'll hit you, the citizen, hard. So it's a big problem that New York faces, and not just New York. I mean, other places that have depended on a certain tax bracket, and this tax bracket went away. It really reflects on whether you really know how to run your city and state and such. It really puts a spotlight on how good at governing you really are. Oh, I've said that New York City is not sustainable for a very long time. I have no issue saying that. Maybe people in power and the media don't want to say that. But for sure, to me, it's unsustainable. And as things open up, this is the thing. Right now that things are all shut down and they don't have to spend a lot of money on certain things, it's kind of in a holding pattern. My microphone works, right? There you go. No, but basically what I'm saying is that right now, because the city is still in kind of a holding pattern, they can still afford to do a lot of bullshit that they're doing, but once things open up, and eventually New York will have to open up, they can delay this, but they're delaying the inevitable. to a certain point. They're delaying this opening, and eventually they're gonna have to open up, and people are gonna return to the buildings and their offices, and people are gonna return to school, and all the New York City programs are gonna have to go back into full force, and they're gonna have a massive shortage, which is why they are begging for a bailout. They are begging for a bailout right now. And this is a big problem. This is a big problem not only for New York, but even for the United States in general, because if you have a major crash, economic crash in New York, that could affect the rest of the country. It could affect the entire economy of the United States. So I think that it would behoove Yeah. They want a bailout that covers everything. It's not just COVID related. This bailout will basically cover everything that relates to how New York City is, not New York City alone, but the whole state, how the whole state is run. And it's ridiculous. And I don't think that a bailout should be given. However, at the same time, I recognize that New York crashing is bad for everybody. So I think that it would make sense to provide some sort of assistance, not really in the sense of a bailout, but I think that maybe you can buffer the markets and make sure that the markets don't crash. And if the city and state want to crash and burn, I say let them, but create like a protective bubble around the markets, so everybody else doesn't get affected by it. Well, I would say a lot more people need to step down, not just the governor, lieutenant governor, and the mayor and the lieutenant mayor, or the second in command mayor. I think the administration of the city at large and the administration of the state at large have shown to be pretty much not only ineffective but criminal in their behaviors in many cases. I would go as far to say that these people at large need to be removed. And I think that these people need to be barred from government moving forward. And I think, like, even the health commissioner, for example, she resigned already because in protest because she was having disagreements with Cuomo. But, if she was still in power, for example, I would say that she would need to resign. You may, but the thing is this, okay? Sure, New York may elect another completely blue Senate and government in Albany. They may do another completely blue everything in New York City. Fine, yeah. But if you eliminate the entire governing body of a state and city, major city, that's a big blow. That is a big, big blow. It's a wake-up call. So even if you get other Democrats in place, maybe these people will learn the lesson from that and go, you know what? Sure, we're Democrats. Sure, we're on the left. Maybe we should pay a bit more attention to how things are freaking run. No, I wouldn't dissolve it as a territory. No, that's going too far, in my opinion. I think California is way more gone than New York, to be honest. Duncan, Idaho. Isn't that a premise of a movie? That New York was turned into an island prison. Now I don't know. I think all kidding aside. Holy cow! That thinking emoji is spinning fast. I didn't know we had one that would spin that fast. Yes, the city fist of the North Star. You are already dead. I loved that when I was a kid. I read the manga and I saw the anime and I loved that whole thing. Fantastic. The city of Cassandra, yeah. Oh yeah. But anyways, no, all kidding aside and all, goofy talk aside, I do think that there has to be some real structural changes. We need a 7 foot tall Uyghur with a whip. Yeah, for real. Um, no, but I think that there has to be some restructuring of how states are governed, how cities are governed. I think this is something I've always advocated for: is more term limits, more accountability. And I think really that's what it boils down to. Yeah, it's fun to joke around and talk about, having entire government step down, but that's not going to happen. The reality is the best way is to create accountability. Create more checks and balances. Create a system where people can't stay in power for very long. More term limits, things of that nature. So I think that in any case, it doesn't matter what the politics of it is. In any state, any city, any level of government, from federal to state to county to city, it should be all term limits, accountability. There should be civil and criminal accountability as well. That if your direct actions cause the death of someone, like in the case of Chaz, that Mayor Jenny Duncan, the mayor of Love, the city of Love. Her direct actions led to the shooting of a minor and died because she would not enforce the law. That, hey, she should be criminally liable for that. Cuomo killing 11,000 seniors. He should be criminally liable for that. His direct actions led to this. Jenny, did I say Duncan Durkin? Her last name was Durkin, if I'm not mistaken. Mayor Jenny Durkin. She's directly responsible for that minor's death. There needs to be accountability. That's the biggest problem that we have. Much like Pelosi with her hypocrisy, where she can go have her hair done and she can go and use the gym in government buildings, but you can't. Because you're a pleb. You're a normie. You're not part of the elite squad here. You're not part of the ruling class, of the nobility. In fact, do you know that on change.org that there's a petition right now to get signatures to get her removed? It's reached about 139,000 signatures right now. See, it's right here. I'll put it in chat. It's hilarious. Take a look at this. Anybody wants to go on to Bitwave and check this link out, actually no, I'll put it in my other chat too. Here you go. There we go. This is funny to me. There you go. I put the link on all the other chats. So, there you have it. Accountability. American people are getting tired of this bull. We're getting tired of taking it up the keister all the time. We're getting tired of them wanting our money for taxes for things that we don't agree with. It's about time that there's some actual real representation in government. Do you not think so? I think so. I don't have a problem with having some real representation in my government. If I'm going to vote someone in, I want them to represent my interests. And not necessarily just my interests. I want them to represent everybody's interests. I want them to represent the interest of the American people at large. Which means that you don't do stupid crap with my money and with other people's money. You do stuff that's supposed to benefit everybody, not only your little pet projects and your little pet communities. I don't think that's a hard ask. I really don't think that's a hard ask. Excuse me, but apparently it is for some people. So, you're there. And I have another ask. Can we stop redoing stupid shows, please? Can we stop rebooting old TV shows and just taking a ginormous dump on them? There's this report that came out that they're gonna be rebooting and remaking the Golden Girls. Now the Golden Girls, it's an alright show. I'm not gonna crap on the Golden Girls. People like them. People think they're funny. B. Arthur was funny. Betty White was funny. Yeah, whatever. You know, that's fine. But they decided they're gonna redo this. They're gonna reboot it, and they're gonna have an all-black cast. Why? I don't know. And it's not even the black casting that bothers me. It doesn't. I don't even care. That's not the thing that I care about. The fact is, you had this iconic show. It turned out to be an iconic show. A lot of people love the Golden Girls. Do you really think? Do you really, really, really think that rebooting it in any form, is going to be successful? Trust me, it is not. Especially if you do stuff like this where you completely change the race of everybody that was on the show. Okay? You had such iconic characters in the Golden Girls. You're never going to recreate that. It's kind of like trying to say, let's recreate Cheers. Let's recreate MASH. Let's recreate Three's Company. It's not going to happen. No matter what you do, no matter what modifications you make to it, you're never going to recapture the iconic show that you had. Just let it go. Think up of something new. This is the epitome of running out of ideas. It is absolutely ridiculous. This shows you really how out of touch Hollywood and TV production is. It's supposed to be just a one-off special anyways, actually. It's supposed to be just a one-off special. It's not a whole series. So let's end my rant there for a moment. It's a revival. It's a one-off special set to broadcast on Zoom of all times. I think next Tuesday it's supposed to happen. You know what? It's gonna be garbage, much like that remake of The Princess Bride. I have no idea what even happened with that. Everybody shat on it because it deserved it, and this is gonna be the same thing. I mean, this kind of experimentation is so dumb. It's not even funny. It amazes me that they even try and pull this stuff off. It really, really amazes me that they even think, yeah, it's on Zoom. Oh yeah. It's being done to spur interest in voting. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, there's no respect for source material. No. There's no respect for source material. There's no respect for the original show. There's no respect for the original actors and writers and everybody that was involved in the original production of that TV series. That's the real takeaway from all this. Is that they don't really care. They're using it, if they are using it for political reasons, it's even worse, in my opinion. You know? But going back to politics, if you know, since we're talking about politics again, primarily, do you know that the CNN chief Jeff Zucker told Michael Cohen he wanted to give Trump a weekly show, and offered to give him advice to help with the 2016 debate, and said, "You can't be elected without my network"? There's leaked audio that says that. Leaked audio appears to have Jeff Zucker and Michael Cohen speaking just before the GOP primary debate on March 10th, 2016, which CNN hosted. Zucker boasted to Cohen that you cannot be elected president of the United States without CNN. The CNN head said he was fond of Donald Trump, but said he didn't want to talk over email at risk of Trump mentioning the correspondence at his rally. Following the election, Zucker offered Trump a weekly show. He also praised Trump's handling of the opponents during the primary. Quite the difference of expression that you hear now, don't you think? So this is from the Daily Mail. CNN President Jeff Zucker told the president's disgraced lawyer Michael Cohen that he wanted to give Donald Trump a weekly show during a March 2016 conversation. The exchange between Zucker and Cohen took place just hours before the GOP primary debate on March 10th, which CNN was hosting. In audio obtained by Tucker Carlson tonight, the CNN head told Cohen that you cannot be elected president of the United States without CNN. Quote, "You guys have had great instincts, great guts, and great understanding of everything," Zucker explained to Cohen. "But you're missing the boat on how it works going forward." Zucker would later express worry with corresponding with Cohen by email, adding that he wouldn't risk the possible chance that Trump would mention the nature of the conversation at a rally. "I'm very conscious of not putting too much in email, as you're a lawyer, as you understand," Zucker asserted. "And as fond as I am of the boss, he also has a tendency, like, if I call him or email him, he then is capable of going out at his next rally and saying that we just talked and I can't have that, if you know what I'm saying." He later added, "It's not that I don't want to talk to Trump every day. I just got to be careful because I've just got to be careful. I just don't want him talking about it on the campaign trail. But you know what? I'm going to give him a call right now, and I'm going to wish him luck in the debate tonight." The conversation then changed to post-election plans, with the CNN head offering a weekly show with Trump. "I have all these proposals for him," Zucker told Cohen. "I want to do a weekly show with him and all this stuff." Turning his attention to the debate, Zucker took the opportunity to praise Trump's handling of Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and others. "I think the other guys are going to gang up on him tremendously, and I think he's going to hold his own, as he does every time," Zucker said. "He's never lost a debate, and you know what? He's good at this. He's going to do great." Zucker then offered his own advice to Cohen and Trump's team, telling them to have him ready for the attacks others were gearing to use during the debate. "You know what you should do? Whoever's around him today should just be calling him a con man all day so he's used to it. So then when he hears it from Marco Rubio, it doesn't matter," Zucker said. "Hey, con man, hey, con man, hey, con man." He thinks that's his name, The relationship between Zucker and Trump has since grown increasingly tense, with the president slamming the CNN head and the network for the reporting of his term as president on the regular. And that's the end of the article. So it's very, very fascinating. It's very fascinating that CNN, the head of CNN, actually was encouraging Trump, was actually providing advice. It's amazing how things turned, how things switched. Quite the fascinating thing, huh? Makes you really wonder the motivations of these people. It makes you really think. I find it fascinating when I hear stuff like this. I find it really fascinating when I see stuff like this because what possible reason would CNN, the head of CNN, have to do this sort of thing? I think, this is just my speculation, I think that I think that their idea was to just derail the Republican primary. They wanted to interfere with the Republican primary, so they were encouraging Trump to do all the stuff that Trump was doing because they thought that he would basically destroy the Republican Party. But it turned out that it didn't. It actually unified the Republican Party and it splintered the Democrat Party. It backfired on them. That's why now CNN and all the liberal media is like insanely enraged over Trump. That's what it would appear like to me. So I find it interesting. I find it interesting when I read articles about that because it seems to me that there was a lot of ulterior motives floating around and a lot of things happening during that time. One more thing that I want to talk about before I end the stream today. No, actually, two quick things. And there's two last things I want to mention. Okay, so I was just getting an article up. Sorry for the pause there. So you have a report here that the Department of Justice moved to assume responsibility for defending President Trump in a defamation lawsuit brought by a woman who says Trump raped her in the 1990s. E. Jean Carroll filed suit last year after Trump denied knowing her and accused her of lying. So this is the woman who said that rape is sexy, and that women fantasize and like it, you know, things like that. Her story doesn't have a lot of credence to it, doesn't have a lot of weight to it, and a lot of evidence. So the Department of Justice, their job is to defend the president of accusations and things like that. So people are all up in arms because they're saying, oh, the Department of Justice shouldn't be defending Trump in this case. Why not? That's their job. So as long as there's nothing legally wrong with what they're doing, I don't have an issue with that. Especially with stories like this by Carol, which obviously don't hold water. So I'm not entirely against having the Department of Justice defend him in this particular case. So it doesn't bother me per se. Oh, actually, there is one more thing beyond these two that I wanted to talk about. I just saw this. I remember I brought this up because I wanted to talk about this. So we'll see what happens with this case. I don't know. You know, if evidence comes out that there is wrongdoing on the side of the president, then I would say, yeah. You know, if there's any sort of criminal liability, what have you, I'm not. If there's evidence that he did indeed do what he did, what is not what he did. I'm sorry. If he indeed did what is being accused and alleged, then sure, there should be legal consequences to that. But as of yet, all these accusations that have been thrown his way, many have been admittedly political. Some have been really kooky, like in the case of Carroll. Some have not held much water, and there's very little evidence to show that he actually did anything. So to me, it's a matter of the facts and the evidence. And if there's no evidence, I'm sorry, I can't just say someone's a rapist without any sort of evidence whatsoever, or I can say someone's a terrible person without any evidence whatsoever. So I think that it really, if people want to be honest and objective, and they actually want to respect victims, if you want to respect real victims of these sort of crimes, you really should just say, okay, let's look at the facts, let's look at the evidence. Is there evidence? Great. If there isn't, tough nookies, I'm sorry. That's really what it boils down to. Because if you just entertain every single salacious story, every single falsehood, every single false accusation, you're really doing a disservice to real victims. You're making it harder for real victims to get justice for crimes that have been done against them, that have been committed against them. That's really what it boils down to. In other news, Governor Whitmer is a moron. I mean, that's not surprising. So Michigan's Whitmer says, Trump event this week, distressing, but Biden event, okay. I mean, you can't get more political than that. And Trump has told people to wear masks. She's saying Whitmer, she's concerned that he's going to tell attendees to his event to now wear a mask. He has never told people not to wear a mask. Like, whenever he's gone to events, he hasn't said don't wear a mask. He left people the choice. Okay? So, the fact that she just is such a hypocrite on this matter is just mind-boggling, frankly. And the thing is, you know, there's this also, CNN is reporting about this and saying Michigan's Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer says she sees the presidential race tightening. The big question you're going to ask is, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? She says, for the working class in this state, the answer is unequivocally no. Well, you know, I'm going to tell you this. There's a lot to be said in all states, not just Michigan, about how up until COVID, everybody's wages were up. There was a lot less unemployment, so a lot more people were working. There's a lot more prosperity. And honestly, if people are not better off now, presently, it has more to do with how you, Governor Whitmer, and you, Governor Cuomo, and you, Governor Newsom, and you, Governor whoever, in every other state, how you ran your state in a crisis. Michigan, traditionally, even in the recession that we had back in the George W. Bush days, okay? Michigan was hit particularly hard. And there was a mass exodus out of Michigan to different states like Texas, like other states that were better off. Not really because of like how bad George W. Bush was managing the economy, but the fact that Michigan had a governor who was an absolute disgrace, who had no idea what the hell she was doing. You had Governor Granholm, who basically not only hurt Michigan more, but actively worked on hurting it more. It wasn't even a matter of incompetence. It was a matter of horrible policies during an economic crisis, which just made things even further worse than they were. So if people are not better off in Michigan, she really shouldn't be saying stuff like that, because she is a direct result of this. So it's not really smart of her to say something like that, in my opinion. I think it's very, very dumb of her to say something like that. But then again, it's Whitmer. She's not smart. She's an idiot. She's a tyrant and an idiot. So that just goes to show you what kind of people are put in power in different parts of the United States. It's a disgrace. Yeah, it's just dumb. It's just really dumb. And it's just hypocritical, because if she had such a real concern, I haven't tested it out yet. I think I'm gonna try it Thursday night. I gotta I'm still working on getting all the visuals together for VMix Illustrator. Tomorrow is Thursday, so we're gonna do the evening stream, and I'm gonna try and test it out on the evening stream and see how it fares. We're gonna try and work that out and see what's going on. But it's basically hypocrisy. It's just all politics. It's just all politics. Because if she really, 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 really cared, if she really, really, really had an issue with these rallies, and she really had a problem with people gathering, as she says she does, then she would have to have the same problems and concerns with Biden and his rallies, even though he basically has nobody at his rallies. But that's a different issue. But for the small groups of people, no, it's not quite as drag and drop. But I have noticed that once you figure out how those scenes work, I do find that it's actually relatively straightforward, in the sense that it's not really crazy to get it all set up. I was able to get my thing set up. I'm working on it right now. Yeah, that's the biggest issue. See, the thing with the overlays is that you have to create every single thing separately first, and then inside a scene you can multi-overlay everything into one thing. It's a little backwards. That's the thing that was very interesting to me about it. It doesn't? Really? I'm not aware that it doesn't accept PSD files, huh? Well, most of my stuff I just put up as PNGs anyways. And then if I need to make modifications, I do have the PSD for them, but I don't. I usually put it's less heavy to load a PSD anyways. I mean a PNG. The PNG is more lightweight, so I think it's better for putting less burden on the software, in my opinion. So even in OBS, I only use PNGs. I don't use Photoshop files for that, because Photoshop files are bloated as hell. Like, they're insanely bloated. And plus, I'm trying to get away from Adobe. Actually, Adobe is trash. It's a bloated mess, and they're way too much money for the product, and they're not that high quality. Actually, I've had a lot of issues with Adobe in this last year. They basically lost me as a customer. But that's a different issue to talk about. The last thing, actually, I do want to talk about before I sign off here, is that Mark Zuckerberg released a video saying that, quote, what we and the other media need to start doing is preparing the American people that there is nothing illegitimate about this election, taking additional days or weeks to make sure all votes are counted. That should scare the ever-living shit out of everybody. Okay? When you have people like Zuckerberg and technology and the media pushing for, you won't get the results on November 3rd or 4th, after November 3rd. You gotta wait weeks. That's a red freaking flag, people. Okay? That is a giant, huge, enormous red flag that should be blaring in your minds right now, because anything could happen after an election if you just allow people with no oversight to do whatever the hell they want with your ballots. President Trump really needs to do something about this to make sure that the election is legitimate and everything is on the up and up, and that there's no ballot harvesting, there's no mail-in ballot fraud, and there's no fraud in general. Something needs to be done to stop this, because this is a precursor here. This is a prelude. This is foreshadowing. That's the word I was looking for, foreshadowing. This is foreshadowing. They're preparing shit. And you know that this needs to be taken care of. You know that this needs to be looked at. And I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. I don't want to hear anybody talk about this sort of stuff, Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter to me what your politics are. This isn't a matter of Trump winning the election or not. This is a matter of moving forward the legitimacy of our elections, the integrity of our elections in the United States. Everybody should want an election that has integrity and legitimacy. And we cannot allow people to try and manipulate our election using the mail service, which is shit and garbage, and to abuse the system because you don't like who is currently running as a president or not. And if people can go get their hair done, and if people can go and protest in the streets over Black Lives Matter, and if people can go and do whatever they want as they have been doing, you can go to the freaking polls. This whole mail-in ballot nonsense is just that. It's absolute nonsense. And it needs to stop. It needs to stop right now. It has gone far enough. And nobody should be legitimizing stuff like this, like Mark Zuckerberg is saying. They should give him a giant throbbing middle finger, as they should to every politician that suggests mail-in ballots. Because they're going to try and pull something. They tried to do that with the Georgia election there with the governor, with what's-her-face. Hey, thanks for the follow. Thanks, the 9 Bean Sprouts, for following me on DLive. Which actually, that brings me to some shameless self-promotion. That's a good reminder. Hey, if you like what I'm doing here, if you like hearing me rant and rave, and boomering up my stream, consider donating. Streamlabs.com/TheEternalAbyss. Buy me a coffee. I have that set up now. I'm gonna put the links in my description soon. I also have Ethereum set up for that. I'm in the process of updating all that. So please consider supporting me in that fashion. But if you cannot, the best thing you can do for me is actually do just what 9 Bean Sprouts did. Follow me. Subscribe. Follow me on social media, on Twitter, on Gab, on Parler, on Minds, on Flote, FLOTE.app, on all the video platforms that I'm on Twitch, Periscope, DLive, YouTube, and Bitwave. And on archiving stuff, which I'm woefully behind on archiving, but like on BitChute and Library, LBRY. Hey! I love that song. Okay, alright, that's enough. But anyways, you had no idea how loud my headphones were when that kicked on. I was like, turkey in the straw, blast in my ear. I was like, oh my god. But thank you very much for the donation, Illustrator. But Naked Gaming on DLive. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate your support. I really do. But as I was mentioning, growth is really the biggest thing anybody can help me with right now. Twitter has eliminated over 200, 300 of my followers. I'm having constant issues trying to keep my growth up because of the various censorship that I've run into. So if you can support me that way, of helping me just grow on all my platforms, that's really the best way to help me. Viewers, I need more viewers, I need more followers, I need more sharing. That's the best thing you can do for me, and I really appreciate any support. So, I pretty much talked about everything that I want to talk about right now. Prohibited.tv, 9 Bean Sprouts, let's see, let me check that out. Is that another, is that a streaming platform? Interesting. Okay, yeah, it's another streaming platform. That's interesting. Yeah, you know what? I can try and check it out. Right now, I'm looking at multi-streaming options because what I'm currently using is a little wonky in the sense that, I'm depending off of Restream.io, and you know, it's great for certain things, but for other things, not so much. Because if I really wanted to multi-stream to all these different platforms that I want to multi-stream on, it would be prohibitively expensive. So it makes it very complicated to try and go to as many platforms as I would want. You know, there's also arguments to be made that I should just focus on a small handful of platforms instead of trying to spread myself out so much. But, you know, I'd rather get as much exposure as I can initially, and then maybe once things pick up more, then maybe I can focus on a couple. But I don't know. You know, it's a complicated thing. And I'm trying to find a good software, and that's why I'm playing around with vMix, for example, because they should, out of the box, it allows for streaming to multi-platforms built in, if I'm not mistaken here. Not a lot. That's the problem with this. I think it only gives you 3 platforms that you can stream on. So I'm thinking of doing, like, I don't know. I'm thinking that, let's see here, like, I don't know. I could point one to Restream, and then I can use the other 2 platforms for some custom platforms. Which currently, if I do that, that pretty much will cover everything that I'm on. Because the only 2 custom platforms that I'm on that aren't supported by Restream is Float and Bitwave. So if I do that, it'll be Float, Bitwave, and then everything else that's supported by Restream. Which means that I have no room for anything else. So, I mean, I'm always appreciative of suggestions. I'm always appreciative of other platforms to discover. I mean, absolutely. Please send them my way. I'm always curious to check out new stuff. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see if that's something I can even add in the future. Because that's the biggest drawback about vMix, actually. Illustrator, since we were talking about that, is EntropyStream.live. That's another platform. Let's see. Huh. Well, see, I've never heard of these. I don't know how much traffic they really get, to be honest with you. But anyways, the point is that I'm always open. Hey, Shalom, Hetero Alpha God. Haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? Oh, I have no idea from what Trovo.live. I don't even know what that platform is. Oh wait, no, I've seen Trovo before. Whoops. Hello. Hold up. That's very much like DLive, it seems. It looks like a clone of DLive. I think Trovo is supported by Restream. Actually, it is. That's where I've heard it. That's where I've heard of it. It's on Restream because I look at all their supported platforms, and that's one of them. So that's very interesting. I don't know. You know, I don't know when it comes to political talk, though. These kind of platforms, like even DLive, it's very much for gaming and other stuff. It's not really so much for political talk. But I'm on it anyways. So I don't know. I'd have to look at all these different platforms and see if there's some that I can either prune or add or what have you. I'll have to look at that. I'll have to play around with that, and we'll see what happens with that. Especially with vMix, I don't even know if it's gonna work proper. Like, I tried another platform, it didn't work at all for me. Like another piece of software didn't really work for me. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But I think I'm gonna call it a day, guys. Just working, yeah. I've been very busy too. So, hey, it's getting close to lunchtime. I want to thank everybody for watching. We're gonna call it a day here. Tomorrow there will be no stream in the morning. No stream in the morning. It's gonna be in the evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you mark your calendars. follow and share and subscribe and do all that fun stuff. And remember, kids, as always, don't be complacent. And have a great day.